do what you love and love what you do.
Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel Career Success Guide CSG. Today we are going to do Meet and Connect with the Pro. Our special guest is Dave Priya Day. He is a faculty at Jain University and he is also a research enthusiast in the field of inclusion of persons with disability. Let's get to know him a little bit more. Over to the video. It's interesting to see that we reconnected after so many years. And you were an HR professional, you did your MBA, then you moved as an assistant professor. So, what is the story behind it?
Yeah, well, that's
Dave.
actually interesting in my life how it changed. I never thought that I will get into academics, very frankly speaking. I started my career into sales, and that to a ground level sales. In fact, let me tell you very frankly, I was a salesman. So I was a salesman in one of the retail stores, and that's how I started my career. And then when I actually uh, got awarded 3 4 times as best salesman of the region for few I think couple of months, and then I came to know, okay, this is actually what does an HR do. He or she comes and rewards, gives you a salary every month. Okay, whenever a person is required in the organization, he or she recruits you. Okay, so that is when I asked my store manager, saying that, I want this kind of job where there is a Saturday Sunday off, and I will come and appreciate people, reward them, recruit them, and take their appraisal. So I felt, this job is an amazing profession. I read about HR during my graduation, but yes, down the line I forgot about it, and whichever opportunity came after my graduation, I took it up, and I started my career into sales. And as I said that, yes, that was my first introduction to HR from seeing an HR. Okay, and then gradually, when I was interested, I started my career into recruitment, then moved on to IT organizations, then retail organizations, then moved to, and then I never looked back. I started maybe enjoying the profession. And then after working 8 10 years, then I realized, okay, MBA is something which is required. Maybe those days, yes, in 2000, I'm talking about 2001. In those days, it was not even required that yes, MBA is a must. So I never felt that. But later on, after working for 8 10 years, then I realized that yes, MBA is something which is going to add a value. So then I came and started doing the full time MBA, and this is my turning point of my career, where I thought, I think again I got swayed. I will say that yes, life of a professor is good. It seems good, at least. Yeah, so first time when I saw in life of an HR, it seemed good to me, and I started a career there. And then second time when I saw a career, in a profession of faculty, I say, yeah, that's even better. Why not? And then when I used to give presentations in the class, or deliver lectures, I think I started enjoying that interaction. So, and I always believed in one thing, do what you love and love what you do at the end of the day. But it was not an easy journey, let me tell you. When I finished my MBA, again I got into the same kind of HR based roles, but somewhere my heart was there into teaching. Okay, now problem is, no one believed me that yes, I could teach, because I did not have an PhD degree that point of time. Even now I don't have. I am almost on the verge of completion of my PhD.
Yeah.
Okay, people asked, if not PhD, then do you have an MPhil degree? Okay, no, I did not have. Have you written any research paper? I said no, never tried out. Okay, have you written any books? I said no, I have never even made an attempt to. Or even at least a conference you have attended. So nothing. I did not have anything which was actually required for academics. Those days. Okay. Then somewhere, I think, yes, I was recruited by a university which actually gave me a platform, saying that, yeah, okay, we will try you out. But let me tell you, uh, the gross salary was even lesser than my basic salary in corporate.
Oh,
So I had to start from the scratch, try to prove myself over and again. But yes, I think that was the testing time for me. and I think I enjoyed thoroughly my journey. And then again, my second phase of my career, I never looked back, and today I am on the verge of completion of my PhD, and I love to do what I am doing now. So I thoroughly enjoy my profession. So that was how, I shifted from academics to a full-time MBA, and then into, again into a teaching profession.
Oh, that's kind of been a very interesting journey and multiple roles in such few, like, in like 10 years, you've done plenty of things in your life and you found your right place. That's what I feel about you. So we were always looking at you. You were coming with a lot of experience. So whenever you had a point, we knew that, oh, there's something that's, that we should learn from him. You have those ideas and you can elaborate it and, you articulate it really well. So I think you're in the right field where, you can fully utilize your potential. And that's awesome. And you were talking about the research that you're doing. You're almost completing the research, and I think the research is very, the topic that you've chosen is very relevant in today's world. So you were doing research about and inclusion of persons with disabilities at workplace, right? So
Right.
why did you choose that topic? And
Absolutely. In fact, that also, I believe my life is full of stories, So in fact, that also has a story. Since I belong to, I have a corporate background, and then when I did my MBA, I learned the academic aspects, and then when I joined academics, I wanted to get into the depth of it. So, and then when I saw that yes, PhD is a mandate, so I said, okay, let me select a topic. Uh, when I started searching about topics, right from manpower planning till employee exit, it seemed to be, very, very monotonous, and it's like the entire world seems to be they have done everything. So what am I supposed to do? So one day I was sitting. You might be knowing Majestic railway station, okay,
mm-hmm.
in Bangalore. Yeah. So I was sitting there, and then I was waiting for I was waiting for someone there, and then when I observed a person, um, he or she was, I think she, it was she was struggling to find out the bus number. Okay, and no one was able to communicate. I said, what's the issue? Probably, then later on, when I approached her, I also realized that yes, she was not able to explain what does she need. Then I gave her a piece of paper and I told her, do you know how to read? Do you know at least to write and tell me what exactly you are looking for? So she seemed to be little, agitated, frustrated, trying to identify something, find out something, and then I realized that she can't speak. Okay, so that triggered my thought, saying that what I mean. Imagine, let me find out how many people are there in India like this. There might be plenty. Now let me get down to the statistics. Then I realized that more than I think more than 29 million people are there who are into this. And the moment we see them, we try to see them from a sense of charity rather than no, so that's the social stigma which we already carry in our mind. And that's when it triggered, when I actually had an interaction with her for last 5-10 minutes, but that was the triggering point. And then when I came back home, started finding out information more and more, you will be surprised. There are few of the organizations which recruit people end to end, and that means 100% of their staffs are they belong to person with disabilities. Okay. I mean, that was another shock for me. I said, how is that possible? 100% of the staff, one of the organization which is based at Bangalore, it's a restaurant called Echoes. Okay. Then it's located at Kormangla in Bangalore. I found out about them. It's end to end. They are there. Then in Mumbai, there is a restaurant called Mirchi and Mine. Okay. Then I got introduced to the founder of Vindhya Infomedia, which is a BPO. And I had an opportunity to meet Miss Pavitra, who is the founder. and the way that she had started this organization, it was amazing. Right from the reception till the head of operations, more than 60-65% of the workforce belong to person with disabilities. Then these small trivia triggered me so much, saying that I think let me find out something, something. And then I realized that hardly any research has been done in an Indian context. In abroad, definitely,
Yeah.
there are acts, there are laws, there are bylaws, but yes, but again in
It's
Indian
more
context there are
accommodative
hardly
in
any
abroad, I
research.
think.
Absolutely, absolutely. So then so my research was into the inclusion of PWD at workplace, trying to identify. First thing was, what are the barriers to inclusion? Number one. Number two, what are the inclusionary efforts that the organizations are taking, to overcome these barriers?
Yeah.
Okay, and if they are overcoming these barriers, why are they doing it? So how, to what extent are they affecting it to their organizational performance or employer branding? If you ask any Fortune 500 companies, or the big pocket based organization, I would say, who have a lot of funds, you ask them, they have a diversity policy, inclusion policy, equal opportunity employer. You know that since we belong to the HR fraternity, we use these jargons. But when you ask them that, can you tell me what is the percentage of workforce which belongs to PWD, you will get to know the reality.
Yeah.
Okay. And those who also say that, yeah, we have 1.5% of the workforce as PWD. I will know, wow, what do you do with them? How do you nurture them? At what level are they recruited? You will find that majority of them are recruited at the lower level.
Yeah.
That means they have followed this diversity and inclusion policies towards PWD for the namesake, for the sake of CSR, not for as someone who is contributing to the business. So that triggered me to do an in-depth research. In fact, I have done the interview with more than 200 diversity and inclusion managers, a senior HR leaders who have been involved in taking decisions in policy making towards the inclusion. And then, a lot of insights have come out, and which is actually a part of my PhD.
Oh,
Okay,
that's
so
amazing. Yeah.
yeah.
From an HR's point of view, from somebody who has studied this field, what do you think is like a practical solution? Like, how should like an HR or an organization should construct policies around including these persons with disability into their workplace in a way that we are not actually keeping them aside or giving them a low grade position? We want to make sure that they have a career like anybody else has. So what do you think about that?
Absolutely. See, what happens here is, first of all, we need to identify what is stopping me to accept. Okay. And anything in organization, whether it is going to happen or not, depends on the top management.
Of course.
Okay. If the top management shows that yes, there is a commitment, okay, toward, if the top management feels that yes, I think the person with disabilities can make a difference, I think it is done. 50% of the battle is won. Okay. Now, if you as an HR, or anyone in a top leader in the organization is trying to convince their top leaders, okay, or that means at a CEO level or a CHRO level, yes, then something can be worked out. Believe me, otherwise it will be complete fancy. We the organization which tell that we encourage diversity, we have tie-ups with NGOs, consultants, we do sensitivity training. See, you also know that I and you cannot be brainwashed in 2 sessions of 3 hours, and then yes, we started believing that yes, this is black, black is white, white is so both are same. We have not been taught in that way. Believe me, I think just 2 days back, when I was teaching my 4-year-old daughter, okay, I was teaching her opposite words, okay, and in one of the words which came as bright and dark. Now, when it came to bright, the picture was shown as a beautiful fair lady. When it was dark, it was a dark lady with a little bit of ugly face which was shown. Now, what is these people trying to portray in our minds from the time that we are small? That are people who are of a dark complexion, are they not looking good? Is that what dark means? That means people who do not resemble or like you and me, are they not same? Right? Okay, if I'm talking with you in sign language, that means something is wrong with me. You won't believe there is an organization called Mitti Cafe, which is run by Miss Alina Alam, if I'm right. It is doing wonders now. Name the IT park and they have their cafes there. Okay, now retail organizations have started picking up people with different background, hospitality, retail, ITES, everyone has started picking up these things, but it takes a lot of time. Let me can I take few moments to tell you some of my practical experiences which I had while interaction. When I was interacting with one of the senior IT leaders, he said that, okay, today I have realized that, okay, I should include person with disabilities in my organization. Okay, fair enough, done. I am ready, sir. But do I have the infrastructure which is available only on rent? Can I modify that? Probably very next to impossible. I can modify a little bit here and there, but can I modify? You are saying now I have to put a ramp. Yeah, you're saying I have to put lift system. You're telling me to modify the washrooms. So that is something which is difficult. I work on a rented premise. How am I going to do? Number one. Number two, we are ready to invest in terms of investing softwares or hardwares that are required. Okay. We are ready to include person with disability. But tell me, where are they available? Majority, as per the census data, majority of them are available in the rural part of this country. Urban area people are not available with the required education. Now, one part is, okay, I am ready to be recruited, but do I have the minimum qualification to get recruited? Probably no. Okay, now even if organizations want people, they are not able to source people. And the reason behind all these things is, number one is the mindset, saying that they are not, the person with disabilities are not skilled, they are not productive, they are not accurate at their work, they cannot socialize with others, they have a very, very low career advancement opportunities. Okay, so and is it their fault? Is it the fault of the employers? You have been an HR, why didn't you think about it while hiring people? Because of the lack of experience. Probably today I am able to talk on this subject. Maybe I will give a credit to my 10 minutes of experience which I had long back with a person with disability. So otherwise I would have been also one of them who might think, okay, that's okay. I mean, I might feel sympathetic towards you during the interview process or selection process, but again, my final decision may not be.
People have the fear of unknown. They don't know, right?
Exactly. Number one. And one more interesting thing which I had found out is there is an act. I think 2016. This act was enacted. That is called Rights to Person with Disabilities Act, RPWD Act 2016, where the categories of PWDs were actually 8 earlier. Okay, 8 categories were there. Now that 8 categories of PWDs have been increased to 21 categories, where patient acid attack victims, thalassemia persons, dwarfs, okay, they have been also included. Okay, which is a fantastic move. Okay, now with this increase of the category of PWDs, there is an interesting trivia behind it, which I found out that organizations are supposed to get an incentive. Similarly, the PWDs, they also get some incentive of, for example, non-employment or unemployment incentives. Okay, they can take part in I think that Manrega policy, wherein 100 days of employment. I think there are some rates which they get. Okay. Now what happens in this context is these PWDs at a rural area who fall under this Manrega provision, they don't want to work. Why? Because if they sit at home itself, they can earn some amount.
Okay.
And if there are 4 or 5 of members in their families who all will fall under this category, who even if they get for 100 days employment multiplied by an X amount which they get on everyday basis, then probably they are getting an enough amount of money which can help them to sustain. Why will that person take an additional effort to get trained under a vocational rehabilitation center, go to a city area, leave their families, and then why to make that struggle when my things are going on? Number one. Number two, see, even if employers are ready, employee, the person with disability is the person is ready, but still they will not be able to join because of the way that they are born and brought up. For example, whenever a person with disability is born in a family, parents, I mean that's natural. That's natural. They become very, very overprotective. They don't tell people that, okay, look, I have a son or a daughter who is not normal like you and others. Okay, they don't take them to social gatherings.
Yeah,
Okay.
it affects the mindset of the person itself. When they're going through this for a series of years, when they feel like they have something, they're not confident enough to face the world.
Exactly. So that impacts their self-esteem. So tomorrow, even when the employers approach them through NGOs and consultants, they might hesitate, saying that it's okay. I mean, I don't think I'll be able to do that job. Okay, so there are issues with the employer side, there are issues with the employee side, that is with the PWDs, and there are issues with the social context.
Yeah.
It's not that easy saying that okay, I as an employer understood today that yeah, I am ready to hire, and then okay, let me hire 2-3 consultants as we used to do while recruitment. Okay, and then we easily we can onboard them. Okay, and then changing the mindset. Okay, assuming that everything has worked well for you. Now bringing those people, that means onboarding them in the organization. You have a set of other so-called, let me take the liberty of calling them monster, like you and me. Okay. I mean, imagine you are a team leader, you already have 3 people, you are under your performance pressure. And then I as an HR tells you that, look, I will give you a person with disabilities who is blind.
Okay.
And you are supposed to be happy about it. I mean that's difficult. Yeah. As a manager, probably
seen that.
So exactly, everyone at the end of the day will look for their performance. And till the time that you are convinced internally, saying that whether the person is not able to see, talk, walk, doesn't matter, my productivity will not be affected.
Yeah.
So this awareness is hardly there. Yes, organizations nowadays, yes, they are able to see that people with disabilities are not leaving the organizations due to whatever reasons. Okay, so their attrition is controlled, productivity is being managed. The organizations like Lemon Tree, they have done a wonderful job. Organizations like Titan in India, they have done a wonderful job by hiring. Okay, and now there is also a context to this. People might find that okay, you are hiring, well and good, but how many of them are actually in the middle level and senior level?
Yeah.
So that is the next level challenge. Today you have hired, okay, let's talk about Lemon Tree. Okay, their staffs are at middle level. How many of them are at a very, very senior level? Now, so these, so we started this discussion with talking about my research agenda. So I am surrounded with these dilemmas in and around. So which is actually an interesting area do a research as in from an HR perspective.
Yeah, it's a very valid topic, and I think there's a lot that we can do to make sure that everyone is included, at least in an organization setup. As an HR professional, there's lots that we can do, and I guess
Absolutely.
in the coming years there'll be more inclusion, more practices, more policies that would be and a lot of investment also. There's a cost part, we started the conversation with talking about that cost, right? And employers
Yes.
or management willing to invest that cost into creating a workplace that is more feasible for everyone, to make sure that everyone is included. So very good points. I was going through your website, Spirit of HR, so I want to know more about that website. And I know that it's been years that you were working on that, so
Okay.
more about the website, please.
Okay. Yeah. Spirit of HR is again, as I said that yeah, my life is filled with stories. It happened during my MBA days. I realized that people who are actually moving to the final semesters, they are struggling to face the interviewers, uh, especially with regards to labor laws, organizational behavior concepts. Why? Because our organizational behavior concepts are being studied in, I think SEM 1. By the time they come to SEM 3 and SEM 4, if you ask them what is punctuated equilibrium model, or how does that impact a group decision, or probably any of these models like Maslow's motivational theory or Herzberg's theory, how does it impact a recruiter or a compensation benefit manager? People will get bouncers
Mm-hmm.
during the interviews, and that is when I thought, okay, let me mold the entire OB book of 500 pages into maybe 10-15 pages. Each chapter will have couple of brief points, and that is on a practical aspect which will help students to prepare
Yeah.
themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Second part, which was the biggest fear of HR students, is labor laws. The moment we say law, we say, oh, I think let's talk about something different. I had actually created the broken down, in fact, the laws, especially the Indian context laws, which was meant for the MBA students who are ready to join the organization. So there are three parts to it which I generally focus on: the HR concepts. To a certain extent, definitely, people will remember, but OB and labor laws, people generally forget, and they find it difficult. To meet this challenge, I have included that everything in one nutshell. Number one. Number two, we might know Maslow's theory, we might know Labor PF and Gratuity Act, but if it comes when the interviewer tells that, look, can you tell me any current recruitment practices which are followed by an ITES based organization? So probably people get confused. What recruitment practices shall I tell the interviewer? So I have posted the HR practices also, categorize them into talent acquisition, talent transformation, and talent engagement. Okay, so this particular blog, in fact, I started writing it as a blog. This blog has the HR, OB, and labor law concepts followed by their industry practices. Gradually, I do not work too much on that nowadays, since I am planning to come out with a YouTube channel. Okay. Yeah, because what I have understood during this pandemic is, people don't have that attention span to listen to you.
Yeah.
So this generation is different. So
Mm-hmm.
sorry to use this word different, but yes, they are actually different.
Mm-hmm.
People want it in a crust. Probably why, in fact, Amazon has come up with their model, business model called, I think, Audible, wherein you can listen to stories. So we generally don't get time or do not have the interest to go page by page. It is
Mm-hmm.
always preferable if someone can tell us the story. So probably I am moving from, it depends on the different learning style. So majority of this generation wants things to be on their platter. So
Yes.
probably I am planning to give them on platter through a YouTube channel rather than expecting them to come and read. But
Yes,
yes,
absolutely. I think YouTube is a better. Millennials are very actively using YouTube.
absolutely,
So welcome to the
absolutely.
YouTube world.
Absolutely. I learned, I think, I learned Instagram few months back from, and that too from my students. So they say, sir, are you there logged into that channel? That gives a lot of insights. I said, where? Insta. I said, okay, let me, I mean, what do I do with Instagram? People post photos there. So gradually, yes, I think it's high time now for the, generations like us or previous to us, probably, yes, Gen X, I will say, or Gen Y, to get aware about what do Gen Z or the millennials, as you said, know about it.
Of course, yes, that's great. I would also want to ask you, like, what would be your advice for job seekers, as you have been into HR for many years? What do you think job seekers should have in this current world?
Two things: attitude and aptitude, which is anyways required for any job. Now, with regards to the attitude, let me tell you, uh, those who are planning to start their career in HR, they should be ready to start from the scratch. Okay. For example, the moment the problem is with us, probably, the way that the faculties deliver the Harvard Business Review cases to them, show their, when they come for an admission during their MBA, the admissions officers show their dreams, think that, you pass out from an MBA and you become an HR manager.
Yeah.
We always give this word manager to them. Okay, we give them case studies where manager's dilemma has been studied. I wish we would teach them how an executive starts working. Okay, majority of them would start from a recruiter's job, wherein they might need to make 100 to 150 calls per day. And after making 150 calls, their targets may not be fulfilled. All at the end of the day, they should be able to cope up with that stress. Or they can start with a training coordinator or an HR coordinator. So, with regards to their attitude, I will say everyone should be able to start from the scratch. That is something which is which is a must. Number one. Number two, with regards to their aptitude, awareness about their labor laws. Again, I'm coming back to this topic. Yes, awareness about their laws. Nowadays, in fact, new labor codes are being, established in India. The moment you ask any HR student, one question: how many of them are ready to work in a manufacturing unit? You will see hardly one or two hands.
Yeah.
They said, no. Labor union? No. I cannot handle it.
Students are afraid of going into unions. There are hardly like a very few students that will actually want that.
Exactly. Number one. Number two, here also there is a stigma from the employer. You are a lady. How will you manage a factory environment? Okay. There also you need to break. You have to prove to the recruiter saying that, look, I know the disciplinary, committee, the way to handle a disciplinary committee, or I can handle a wage discussion. Okay. So awareness of laws, is a must. If you remember 15, 20 years back, the HR managers were actually the LLB people.
Yeah.
Those who were, so they used to do BA, LLB, and then a little bit, I think, some diploma in HR, and then they used to be the personal manager those days. Yes. Yeah. And now, if you see, majority of them would like to join an office job. Why HR? Because I cannot understand finance, I cannot travel, so I will prefer an IT job. I become an IT recruiter. Okay, do something fancy. Every job has a challenge and they should be ready to accept, and it involves laws. So two things to sum up: number one, they should be able to start from the scratch, and number two, they should be a master in terms of labor laws for their country.
Yeah, very good point.
When I joined Croma, the attrition rate was very high. In fact, retail sector always had this issue, saying that retail and IT sectors always had that issue that their attritions were very high.
Yeah.
But somehow I made it possible to bring it to a single digit.
Oh.
I think that the learning from here is connecting with people. Ask today's HRs, how many of the HR managers or HR executives know the names of all the employees for which they are managing, for whom they are managing the process. Yeah. Let's say you are a business HR, you are managing the Karnataka region.
Mm-hmm.
How many of the employees are known to you? Now you need to go a level beyond that. Not only knowing their names, knowing their family members, what
Mm-hmm.
is their condition. So what I am trying to make you understand is here we need to connect with people, know their nerves. It is like
Yes.
a doctor. If
Mm-hmm.
as a doctor, if we don't understand the disease, probably we can't cure. And that will happen because see, that will happen when you know them, when you connect with them. See, one thing we need to understand that why as an employee will I come to an HR and tell? Because I spend my 8 hours with my manager. So probably I'll be close to my manager.
Yeah.
Why will I come to an HR? If an HR always believes that, okay, if you have an issue, please raise a ticket, escalate the issue, I will look into that, or email me the issue, I will look into that. That does not work.
Yeah.
People always, there are a lot of forums where people always say that, will artificial intelligence replace HR? Impossible.
Yeah.
They
It's not
cannot
going to
replace
happen.
100%. Yes. It's not going to be an ATM machine. Today, can I ask you that, Jaya, tell me rate out of 5 how happy you are? Extremely happy? Probably, yes, that you might, even after telling that, yes, I am extremely happy meeting Dev now. But next 5 minutes, you do not know what is going to happen with you, and that might, change your entire mindset.
Yeah.
So connecting with people is something which is the most important skills that is required. And being,
A
if
lot
you're
of HR
talking about,
people don't do that. They have just become like, doing operations, just managing things, but they're
yeah,
not doing that real connection part. When I first started my career, that was one thing that I got from my senior management. Like, you need to learn everybody's name. Like, we used to like read through each and everyone's personal file, and we used to get to know them a lot about them and have interactions with them, ask how they are doing, and have that, build that connection. And that was really important, and I think that really helped me in my further career.
absolutely, absolutely. And for that, why will the business people, that means the other people apart from HR, will speak to you?
Mm-hmm.
Is when you know and understand the business.
Yeah.
Majority, this is the second point, saying that HR guys should also understand the business, and
Mm-hmm.
that is when you can become a business HR.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah, because the moment, if I, because let's say if I am supposed to recruit a sales manager, for a
Mm-hmm.
retail organization or a retail store manager, I should know the nitty-gritties of the retail as a sector, retail as a segment. How does it work? Or else what questions will I ask?
Yeah.
Is HR only a behavioral specialist? We need to be functional specialist also. Yes, and that is where majority of them goes for a toss.
Yeah. So you have to have both business acumen plus that people orientation. Yes.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So, what do you see the future of HR is going? Like, we talked about AI not replacing HR, but where do you see HR in like 5 years or 10 years from now?
Okay, let me tell you what HR is going through now. Is, due to this pandemic, due to this COVID scenario, the entire workforce dynamics have changed.
Yeah.
Now, the biggest challenge here is managing employees who are virtually present. So managing virtual employees is a challenge. It's like, people say long distance relationships. How does that work? Now, how do you engage the
Mm-hmm.
employee? See, it's a very, very simple example. When at one case, you meet an employee on a day-to-day basis, and you say hi, bye, coffee, lunch. Okay, this goes on.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other side, you meet over a team meeting. Yeah, welcome to the team meeting. Hi, I hope everyone is so, which is a formal meeting.
Yes.
A relationship which is developed over the tea breaks and the smoke breaks cannot replace a meetings which happen on Zoom or Microsoft Teams, right? So to what extent will you be able to engage people virtually is a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Number one. Number two, since the entire workforce dynamics have moved towards virtual engagement, You can actually take in people from different segment, different caste, different religion, different ethnicity, different abilities, different sexual orientations. You can take them now because you are not bounded by a boundary.
Yes.
Because it has become virtual. Now that has increased your problem more, right? Okay, you have recruited them. Okay, so your diversity agenda is set. What about your inclusion agenda? How I have recruited 10 people from 10 different regions, but what am I doing and how am I going to engage them is a bigger challenge. It is no more those employee engagement activities like birthday cake cuttings and reward and recognitions will normally work here. So that is the future challenge of HR. Number one, to manage virtual employees, and number two, how do you do this diversity and inclusion agenda on a practical basis.
Oh yeah, it's going to be a very interesting world to see what are the new, we need some outside box thinking. We need some new policies. We need some new practice. So definitely good points. So I think that a lot of my viewers would like to connect with you. So what is the best way to get in touch with you?
I think it will be great if you can give my LinkedIn profile
Sure.
handle there. I think they can get in touch with me. I think
I will also put your your website and your LinkedIn profile so that people can connect with you. Sure. Okay, thank you so much, Dave. It was great talking to you after so many years. I've it has actually given me some insights about especially about persons with disabilities and how we can include them in the workplace. So yeah, good conversation. Thank you so much.
In fact, I would like to thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to come to your platform. I have seen, some of your videos, and in fact, I have subscribed also. It's very interesting. It's very interesting, and I would like to thank you from my bottom of my heart to invite me for this interaction.
My pleasure. Thank you for watching. If you like this content, please like, share, and comment on this video. And also don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much. Until we meet next time, take care. Bye-bye.